What's up, everybody? It is Monday night. It is the second night of spring. We are the Mahai Podcast. We want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We have a really fun show ahead of you. We're talking comic book movies and how comic book movies have impacted pop culture. And with me tonight, I have a couple of wonderful guests. Kim, I can't say thank you enough for coming on. Kim Neubauer, who is one of our favorite nerdy friends here on my podcast, and she's been an amazing co-host since James has been out. So, how the hell are you, Kim?
Thank you. I'm great. Doing awesome.
Good. And with me tonight also is Christy from the Potter Girls podcast. How are you?
Good, Dave. How are you?
Hey, good. That's a dope hat. I like your hat.
I also
Jason
like
Mraz.
Jason Mraz. I should have known.
Well, it's pretty indescript. It's kind of hard to tell. You'd have to really know.
That's fair.
But thank you.
I don't know anything Jason Mraz. But so the interesting dichotomy, you are a huge Jason Mraz fan, and your husband, who's my good buddy Mike, he is a huge Dave Matthews Band fan. But you guys aren't necessarily. He's not necessarily a what do you call it? You're not a Dave Matthews Band fan. You know, he's not a Jason Mraz. Like, you know, how do you guys do that in your house? Like, usually when you like something, like you guys kind of like each other. Like, you go to the concerts, but you guys are like, fuck, I'm gonna go Dave Matthews by myself. I'm gonna go Jason Mraz by myself.
Well, I like to remind him that Jason Mraz is actually a big fan of Dave Matthews and used to go to all his live shows. So we've learned to accept, like, I like Dave Matthews, I just don't love it. And he'll acknowledge that he likes some Jason Mraz, he just doesn't love it. But you know who we do both love is Jack Johnson, which is like the happy median between the two. So that's, I think, how we've resolved our differences.
Yeah. So if Dave Matthews and Jason Mraz had a baby, it would be Jack Johnson.
Jack Johnson.
Is that do you listen to either of those bands, Kim? Either Dave Matthews or Jason Mraz?
No, but I listen to bands that are in like that genre of like kind of jam bandy-ish type music. So like Humphreys McGee and Widespread Panic.
Yeah, you've gone to, I think you've gone to more Humphrey McGee shows than Christy's husband Mike has gone to Dave Matthews Band shows. How many times have you seen them at this point?
Like 110.
Holy fuck. I don't know. I love Nine Inch Nails. All right. I go to a lot of, I went to as many Nine Inch Nails concerts I could possibly go, but I don't know if I could go to 110 Nine Inch Nails shows, because that's a lot. It's the same songs pretty much over and over again. Like, what do they do to keep it fresh?
So Humphreys has a very diverse catalog, and they throw in covers and stuff, and a lot of their jams are like, 20-minute songs, 14-minute songs. And so no two Humphreys shows are the same. So you can see, 3 nights in a row, and they're all wildly different shows. You go one and it's like very jammy. Some shows are a little more rocking, and then you go to other shows and it's like a super dance party, and it kind of just depends on the event, the location, and like, whether it's a holiday or not.
Fair enough. We already have one irate listener. Mr. Mike Potter says that Dave Matthews Band is not a jam band, with an exclamation point, might I add.
I mean, Humphreys and Dave Matthews play together. So like in like 2000 and I want to say 8, there was a tour, and like Humphreys opened for Dave Matthews. So I would beg to differ.
Fair enough. I'll let you guys argue off.
Dave Matthews is a jam band. Mike is wrong.
I agree with you guys. So Mike took me to, like, my first Dave Matthews Band show was Snoop Dogg and Dave Matthews Band. Like, everybody was there to see Dave Matthews Band, and like, Mike has seen him, like a dozen times up to that point. I had never seen him once, but I had seen Snoop Dogg on the very first Lollapalooza tour. So I guarantee I was the only person in Dick's Sporting Goods that had seen Snoop Dogg more than anybody else in the entire stadium. I'd seen Snoop Dogg more than Dave Matthews Band, which is probably not something that was too prominent there. So we're way off topic. I mean, we just started the show just completely off topic. That's kind of how we roll. All right. So, as is custom here on my High Podcast, we always got to talk about the shit that we're watching. Christy, I know you don't watch a whole lot of stuff, so I'm gonna have you go first and just tell us if you're actively watching. But you read stuff. So if you're not watching stuff, I know you're actively reading shit. So talk about what you're reading.
Yeah, no, I'm not watching anything. I'm actively involved in a new cult called Smut Talk. So
Saucy.
romance books that I get recommended on TikTok. And they're not like your mama's bodice rippers. Like they're actually really entertaining books. A little bit of fantasy sometimes it's mafia, whatever. But yeah, so far in 2022, I looked just today, I've read 43 books.
What the
Wow.
So yeah, it's my hyper focus for the moment. There's actually a lot of shows I've been putting off, a lot of movies. I told Bobby the other day, there's 3 Sebastian Stan projects that I haven't watched that are all out. But I just can't bring myself to turn on the TV. And I don't know if it's because I'm afraid once I start, I won't stop because of my obsessive compulsive personality, or just I finished one book and just immediately started another one. It's where I'm at. So yeah, if anybody needs some good romance recs, I'm your girl. I just need to get the confidence to start my own book recommendations on TikTok, and maybe I'm enjoying it. And I guess that's my escapism from the world. Thanks.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Pop culture is books, it's comic books, it's novel, it's movies, TV. It doesn't matter. So if you're not watching shit, but you're reading something, like, be loud and proud about it. That's cool. I like that. How about you, Kim? What are you doing? What are you up to? What are you watching?
So the other day, there's a show that's related. It's like a spin-off of Big Mouth on Netflix. It's called Human Resources. And I watched the entire season in one night. So that happened. It's like 5 hours. Netflix is like, hello, are you alive? Do we need to send an ambulance? And I'm like, no, it's cool. It's cool. Don't worry. I just don't have a life. I finished The Good Place, and I'm still trucking through the reboot of Doctor Who. So I'm on season 3 now again.
Who's the doctor in season 3? Because I don't know anything about fucking Doctor Who.
Oh, so no, there's like, I don't know, there's like 13 seasons now of the reboot, and maybe not that many. I don't know, there's a lot. And I'm on season 3 from like 2008, 9, something around there-ish. And I've seen it a bunch, but trucking right through the whole reboot.
I'm sorry, I miss it? Who's the doctor?
I said I'm trucking through the whole reboot.
No, but who's the doctor? Is it?
I'm sorry. David Tennant is the doctor on season 3. Sorry, I missed what you said.
No, you're good. It could totally be my computer. My computer is so fucking old. Like we were talking earlier, like at any moment I'm expecting my feed to drop, and then the hosting duties will go to you, Cam. So it probably just didn't come through. But I love David Tennant. Have you seen Good Omens yet?
No, I want to.
Oh my gosh, he is so good, dude. So good. And season 2 is coming out. What I'm very excited about that's coming out very soon is Moon Knight on Disney Plus is coming, and The Sandman's coming very soon. So I'm very excited for those 2.
Nice.
What I've been watching, I haven't been watching a lot of like streaming shows. I love Top Chef. I'm very excited that Top Chef is back for another season. It's in Houston. My mom is actually watching it right now, so her and I can chat about it. And Top Chef is the reason why I love to cook to this very day. So that's on. That's just a regular TV show. But I did see like an incredible movie a couple weeks ago. It's called Wolfwalkers. It is if you guys have ever heard of like Song of the Sea, it's by this Irish animation studio. It's like Cartoon Story, something like that. They do this unbelievably beautiful like watercolor type animation and painting, and they made this movie called Wolfwalkers. It's a very Irish movie. It's a fucking fantastic movie. As much as I love Encanto, as much as I loved Turning Red, which we also watched, which was also very good. It is by far the best animated movie I've seen in a long time. The animation studio and then Tom Moore, who directed it, I mean, they're very brilliant, very beautiful, very, very beautiful movies. And they're not like Disney movies where it's just like, songs and color and like, dance. It's just like, it has this story and it's into the story like right off the bat, and like The music is beautiful. The accents are awesome. If you like Irish accents, it's a great movie for you to watch. So, and there's a song in there that I've been oddly obsessed with, like you, Christy. Like I have this like weird obsessive compulsive thing where like if I hear a song that I like, then I will fucking play the shit. I will play it over and over and over and over and over again, and then I have it on my playlist, and so it's like I always queue it up. So I've probably listened to this fucking song like 100 times over the last like 3 or 4 days. And it's by, it's called Running with the Wolves, and it's by this singer named Aurora, who sounds very Irish, but it's from like Sweden or Norway or something like that. She's done a bunch of shit. She's very popular in like the European circles, but she does this fucking song that like I love so much, and I've been playing the shit out of it. So Wolfwalkers, I highly recommend it, especially if you're taking a little bit of mushrooms like I did when I went and watched it. It went from good to great. Yeah, it was great. So I highly recommend that. But one movie that I had totally planned to see was The Batman. The Batman with Robert Pattinson, getting pretty decent reviews. It's like a 74 on Rotten Tomatoes. Despite its 3-hour runtime, it already surpassed Spider-Man No Way Home, and it's on track to be the #1 post-COVID open. So The Batman is on pace to make almost $1 billion worldwide, which would be one of the only, like them and Spider-Man would probably be the only two movies to surpass $1 billion since COVID. And that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about comic book movies. Comic book movies are they are ingrained. They are pop culture. They are ingrained in everything that we do in pop culture, whether it's comic book shows, comic book movies, people wearing comic book t-shirts. I mean, everywhere. Comic books are everywhere. And it's not something that has always been like that. Like we've had decades where like we had the Christopher Reeve Superman, and comic books got kind of popular, and then they had kind of popular X-Men movies, which I didn't really care for. But look at today. I mean, like you have Batman, you have the whole MCU, you have Disney Plus that's releasing show after show that are just based off of Marvel Comics. The Walking Dead, one of the biggest TV shows of all time, based off of comic books. Scott Pilgrim. I mean, there's like comic book movies are everywhere. And so what we want to talk about is why did this proliferation happen all of a sudden? But only that, Kim doesn't really watch comic book shows or movies. And so we want to kind of pick her brain and see, like, because that's an active choice. Like we have to figure out why exactly, why aren't you watching it while everybody else in the world is fucking watching these? So I want to start off with you, Christy, because you're very similar to me in the fact that we love comic book movies. And we love everything about them. So, what is it about comic book movies that you love so much? And like, what is your kind of history with them?
Well, I think I'll put on my English major hat here for a second. And stylistically, comic books are just really great transcribed onto the screen. Whereas a book, there's a lot more interpretation, where comic books kind of guide you in the stylistic what the author intends. One of my favorite, I was not going to talk about Marvel tonight because I feel like we've talked about Marvel to death. So I actually found some of my other favorite comic book movies, one of which I didn't even know was a comic book movie. But a perfect example of this is 300. That comic book was visually interesting, and the movie was a perfect adaptation of the comic book and was also epically visually entertaining. And I think that's why comic books are so alluring to turn into movies. It's just such a hop, skip, and a jump from a comic book to a movie. And I think there's great stories, there's interesting characters, and without all the tangled confusion of getting stuck in language and literature. Does that make sense? I'm using too many words. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Do you think the rise of technology has kind of coincided with the rise of comic book movies? Absolutely. I mean, you look at the original Superman movies from way back in the day compared to the newer stuff now, they can do a lot more. Venom never could have been done without the newer technology, or it wouldn't have been nearly as interesting anyway. You look at the original Hulk TV show versus Hulk in the new movies, it is so much more captivating to see the real character up on the screen and not some kind of cheesy hokum kind of. And that's, I mean, there's been some movies where they purposely are kind of cheesy and it's kind of fun that way. But no, I think technology advances have really pushed comic book movies out into the forefront. Again, part of it is because Hollywood's run out of ideas. Bobby and I've had that conversation, I think, even on the Potter Girls podcast before. And there's so many comic books out there that people don't even know about that are going to one day be an amazing movie. And part of that is technology being accessible for that.
I completely agree, and that was a really good plug that you threw in there. Excellent job. What do you have to add there, Kim? Like, why do you think comic book movies are so popular?
I think they're really popular because they provide like an interesting mashup of like reality and fantasy. And a lot of us grew up, like I grew up reading comic books, and technology wasn't as cool. It was the old Superman movies when I was a kid. And so like to see a lot of that stuff come to life, I'm sure for a lot of people my age and older, like that's super cool to see that stuff. And, you really relate to it. It brings back your childhood feels and nostalgia.
Nostalgia.
Absolutely. Like I'm just completely stumbling on my words here. I have so many, like you said something, I have like 1,000 different comments that I want to say, and they all kind of like try to come out at once. The first thing I want to ask is, do you think that people want to see more movies like Batman Begins, where they're like putting these comic book heroes into the real world so it feels real to you, or would you rather it be more fantastical?
I think there's a different time and place for either of those things. I think it kind of depends on what story you're kind of going for. I think Batman falls into more of like a real life scenario, where some of the other comic book heroes like are more fantastic. But then you look at, so you mentioned Scott Pilgrim before we started the show, and I guess I just didn't realize that was a comic book movie, even though it clearly obviously is a comic book movie. And so something like that, brings kind of like a cartoony type atmosphere to like a very real life sort of real life situation. Obviously, very exaggerated, but yeah.
I think they're going to continue to kind of ebb and flow. Right now, we're kind of at the height of the comic book movie superhero movement. It's still fun and exciting, but I think it's going to start tapering off, and we're going to get back to more of those underground, dark, V for Vendetta, 300 type comics. Constantine, one of my favorite movies, I did not realize was a comic book.
Really?
From
That's
DC,
awesome.
no less. And I'm always talking shit about DC. And then I find out today that Constantine is a DC comic book called Hellblazer. So I think we're kind of in a phase right now. This happens in Hollywood, this happens in pop culture. And I think we're gonna start kind of ebbing away from that. Even Marvel's kind of doing it. We're bringing in some, lesser known characters into the fray. And I just think it's gonna bring about a movement where we kind of get more of the underground comic books that'll end up being one, standalone movies as opposed to these big series.
Totally fair statement there. I want to add, I don't know if you guys have, you guys are kind of pop culture and kind of nerds. Have you guys read The Sandman yet?
Mm-mm.
All right.
No.
If you haven't read The Sandman, first of all, Constantine is in The Sandman. Him and his like great grandma or something like that play pretty big roles in the whole Sandman lore. So I definitely recommend that. But I've read the books. They have an awesome looking TV show coming out on Netflix. But if you get the Audible version of The Sandman, they're super easy to digest, and they're fucking brilliant. I mean, they have all sorts of great voices doing all the characters and shit. And James McAvoy is Morbius, the Dream King. So I really recommend that. But it's based off a Neil Gaiman comic book, once again for DC. So a question I have, and I'm actually going to go kind of wrap around the other way, Kim, is do we have more comic book stuff coming out now because there was such a proliferation of like comic book ideas like 20 years ago or so? Or is it people taking these comic book ideas just because comic books are super popular right now?
I think a lot of people in our generation, like our age group, the three of us, are coming into being writers and actors, and we're really putting our interests into, pop culture. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. But also, CGI and the technology makes it possible to really explore these fantastical worlds. So I think it's a little bit of that too.
Yeah. What do you think, Christy? Do you think when Neil Gaiman came out with like the Sandman, and then there was all of a sudden the Spawn came out, and comic books just kind of like comic books themselves started to grow. Do you think that all these producers are making these shows just because there's so much comic book content out there, or is it just because like comic books are the huge thing, so now they're looking for these different properties?
So is it the chicken or the egg come first?
I like, totally.
I mean, again, it's come and gone though. I mean, you had the resurgence of comic book movies in the 90s too, with the early Batman movies, Dick Tracy, The Mask. So it's not the first time we've had this big rush of comic book movies, right? But
is it as big as it is?
There's definitely some that are jumping on the bandwagon because they are popular, but there are also some putting out some amazing work using the resources they have. So I'm gonna go halfway and say it's a little bit of both, that some are doing it just because it's popular, and some are doing it the respect it deserves, and it's an art.
One thing that you said that I thought was great was that we had resurgences before of comic book movies. Back to my mom's favorite comic book movie, Superman with Christopher Reeves. There was like a whole bunch of comic book movies back then, and that's also around the same time as the Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk. And then comic books died away, and then like you said, there's Batman kind of started it in '89, but then you also had like the like Howard the Duck and shit was all kind of around that same time. Then that kind of went away, and then you had the early 2000s when you had X-Men and the original Spider-Man, but that kind of went away. Christy, do you think that this is just a phase that we're in? Because like to me it feels like comic books are ingrained in pop culture, because back then it was just like there's some pretty cool comic book movies, and then it kind of died away. This just seems like it's not going away. It's been implanted with Iron Man, and then it hasn't relented. So what do you think? Is it just a phase?
It is a phase, but it's definitely a phase we haven't seen the likes of before. I don't know if it could be technology making it easier, more accessible, they can do more amazing things, or these studios are getting a certain amount of money on the return. If they would just keep coming hit after hit. And then we also have to acknowledge the fact that not all of these are movies anymore. We're talking about series direct to people's homes that have been really popular. That's a whole new take on it. It's more accessible for people. It's not costing as much for these companies to produce some of these comic book series. So it is a phase. I still see it going out. It doesn't mean it'll go away forever. We'll hit a little lull and then it'll come back strong. Nostalgia is a big thing. I mean, aren't they remaking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles again? I mean, who's to say in 20 years there's not going to be a new Iron Man because people want to see it again? I don't know. It's a phase.
They already are. They already are making a new Iron Man. They have a lady named Ironheart who's taking over.
Well, okay. Yeah, but remaking Iron Man the same way they've made Batman, like over and over and over.
Yeah. Do you think there will be another Iron Man, or do you think like Robert Downey Jr. was the epitome of Iron Man?
Well, but then you have generations saying that Christopher Reeves was the epitome of Superman, and I would argue that that's not true. It's going to be a generational thing. Our generation is very happy with Robert Downey Jr. I could never picture anybody else being Iron Man. Who's to say my kids' generation decides that old guy playing Iron Man back in the 2000s was kind of lame, and they're going to redo it. Maybe with an actual robot. We have no idea what's going to happen in the future.
There are rumors that in the new Doctor Strange movie that Tom Cruise is going to make a cameo as Iron Man. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Yeah. And it wasn't from like some substandard like gossip site. It was like comicbook.com or something like that. Some pretty decent site has a little bit of a reputation. So I think that'd be pretty cool. It'd just be interesting to see anybody other than Robert Downey Jr. try to pull it off. I didn't think anybody could do a better Batman than Michael Keaton, but for all the movie's flaws, like I liked Ben Affleck more than Michael Keaton. I like Christian Bale better than Michael Keaton. Like Michael Keaton's kind of like, if I took nostalgia out of it as pure Batman performers, I would say he's probably the third. And I think we lost Christy. So Kim, the reason why I love that you're on is because you're kind of like the person who doesn't really watch a lot of this stuff. Like I will inhale every comic book thing that comes out. But you don't really follow that trend. So what is it? Because that's an act of thought. Like, why is it that you don't really follow these trends and watching these movies and shows and shit?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of my time watching like educational stuff, like documentaries and things like that. And so I only have like so much time to consume media. So I don't watch like a lot of that stuff. Or if I'm watching it like in passing. It's not that I don't enjoy it. I enjoy a lot of it. Just I don't know, somehow I just never got that bug to like consume all. I have my own things of which I consume all. But it wasn't comic book movies.
Totally fair. That's totally fair. What kind of sidetrack? What are some of the documentaries that you highly recommend? Because I love documentaries too. So
I've been watching stuff about like black holes and so like, which is right up your alley with your stuff.
Yeah.
And what else have I been watching? Like a couple like true crime documentaries. I've been watching like serial killer stuff. Super into that. I don't know why it's so interesting. Why are their minds like that?
I don't know, but we had a serial killer show like in the very first season, but James and Mel don't really follow serial killers, and so it's like me talking about serial killers and them just kind of like nodding their heads for an hour. So
you guys for both episode.
Me and Christy went to go see last podcast on the left, so like we love fucking serial killer and true crime podcast. So in the next couple of weeks we need to do another serial killer podcast, but with some actual true crime fans on here, because
for sure. And then I also watch like a lot of National Geographic stuff. Like I can listen to who's the
David
narrator for most of those Nat Geo shows?
David Attenborough.
Yes, I can listen to him talk for like just forever. Just soothe me into just another dimension. David Attenborough, come and talk to me. I would love to be able to just hire him to be like narrate my life to me in real time.
My life is not nearly fascinating enough to have a narrator talk about it.
And she smoked
Mr.
the
Hawkins
weed.
is scratching his balls again for the 10th
And
time
she
today.
started another book.
That's funny. All right, so let's run around the horn real quick and let's talk about, obviously, even though Kim, you don't watch a whole lot of comic book stuff, like you said you did some research and you're like, oh my god, that's a comic book movie.
I didn't know Walking Dead was a comic book show.
Yeah. So
I watched all of that.
That's funny. I stopped watching that like a couple years ago. Once Negan started beating people's heads, and like I didn't care for it.
Oh, maybe I didn't watch all of it.
You hadn't seen Negan beating people's heads with baseball bats and shit?
Oh no! So
spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler, it's only like 5 years old that happened, but
oh man, I thought it ended like 5 years ago. So
no, it should have ended 5 years ago, but it keeps going for some reason. I think this is the last season of the original series, but then they have like 2 or 3 other like spin-off series. I'm like,
it's still going?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, this is man. Thank you so much. This is why you're such a great co-host, Kim. Where do we see the end of comic book movies in pop culture? Like, what is going to stop this trend from going? Is it going to be because it's a lack of comic book ideas? Is it going to be because there's some great original ideas? And how much longer do you think this trend is going to go, Kim? Because it was a brilliant idea from you. Why don't you go first?
So I think that it'll, to some degree, it'll never end because we're still creating comic books. Comic books are still a huge niche thing where there's releases. You can go to comic book stores still, and they're brand new, like new stories coming out. So as long as there's new stories being written, there's going to be new movies being made. Because a lot of it's based on the stories or filling in like gaps between the stories, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great answer. What do you think, Christy?
Yeah, I think the big superhero ones might die out sooner than other stuff, and we'll just get more of those cool niche group kind of comic book stuff that I'm actually really looking forward to seeing that kind of stuff. Once I realized how much the stuff I already like was a comic book, I want to see more of that. I want to see more. Well, I knew 300 was a comic book, but I want to see Constantine kind of stuff again. I love Constantine. Did I ever tell you how much I love that movie?
No, this is all new to me.
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool movie. Yeah, Keanu Reeves is cool on it. What do you think is going to be the comic book killer? Is there going to be like one movie that just like is so bad that it just like kills comic book movies, or is it going to be like a series of comic book movies, like big flops, like MCU puts out a couple flops in a row and people stop going? What is it going to be? A pandemic where people get sick and can't go to the movies again for a while? Is it going to be something like that?
I mean, I hate to say we might even already be seeing it. I don't know how well the last few Marvel projects have done from like a box office kind of standpoint. I know I did go see the new Spider-Man, but I saw Shang-Chi streaming and I haven't even seen Eternals yet.
It was good. It was better than Thor: Dark World, but barely. So
barely. So they may have already done too much and it may be oversaturated. I don't know, but I think that's what it's going to be, is that one of these big ones is going to flop and then they're going to start looking to different waters.
Yeah. There's some big titles coming out. We got I think the next movie is Doctor Strange, and then there's Thor: Love and Thunder with Natalie Portman as Lady Thunder or Lady Thor. Then you have the new Guardians of the Galaxy with actual Thor in it. So they have some pretty big titles. I mean, like after that is Wakanda Forever with a new Black Panther. That's where I think that the MCU is going to come to a screeching halt, is when they come up to Black Panther, because there's going to be so much expectations. And with Chadwick Boseman dying, I mean, like, how can you replace? He was the Black Panther. I mean, like, and they already said they're not going to recast him. So, like, those are some huge fucking shoes to fill. And I think that's going to be like, you have so much expectation going to that movie, and if it doesn't live up to it and it doesn't live up to the original, I mean, like, that could very well be the Marvel killer right there. But they have some really cool original ideas coming out. Whoa, what's going on at your house, Kim? Looks like there's a bunch of sirens.
I live on a busy street. It's a rave outside.
It's a rave. It's not cop cars, hopefully, coming to storm your house with all the illicit drugs that you grow in your backyard.
Totally.
So let's talk about some of our favorites here. Christy, why don't you talk about like a couple of your favorite movies and maybe a couple of your favorite shows? Are there any movies that you saw that you really loved? Like, I didn't know that was a comic book movie.
Other than Constantine, it's actually funny. Bobby and I have what we call the 300 effect. We went and saw 300 in theater in an IMAX theater, and it freaking blew our minds, and we would not shut up about it. So we made Mike go, and we had talked it up so much that Mike was like, meh, it was okay. So we literally now call that the 300 effect. We're like, either he didn't like it because he didn't like it, or we talked it up so much that we ruined it for him. So barring all of the Marvel movies that I love so much, Winter Soldier still being my favorite. I do appreciate like The Dark Knight. Going old school, The Mask was one of those movies that was on repeat. Jim Carrey, over and over at my house. Men in Black. I didn't realize that was a comic book movie series. The first one's the only good one, but the second one's not bad. I did. I took notes to make sure I didn't forget anything because I have terrible recall. But yeah, all the Marvel movies, 300, Constantine. Ooh, 30 Days of Night. That was a comic book movie. Did you know that? That was dark.
It was good. Yeah, it was, because there was no sun for literally 30 days. Hence this. Is there a comic book movie that you were like super disappointed in? You know, you talked about some of the things you like, but was there one that you had like high expectations and then you're like, that fucking sucks?
Not yet. No.
What takes me to Turtles?
Well, hey, but why didn't you like it though? Okay, we could talk about that later. I don't know. Well, I haven't watched it, so maybe just the fact I'm not watching it says something. I don't know. No, I haven't been disappointed in anything I look forward to. No.
All right. Eternal's perfectly fine movie. Very different movie. I love Chloe Zhao, who did she won an Oscar. I can't remember what the fucking name of the movie is. I'm too high. But she's a great director. I think Eternals 2 will be much better than Eternals 1. It's worth checking out. Plus, they set up so much shit in Eternals. They're like, I'm sure what happened was like, hey, this movie's not great, so how can we get people to watch it? Oh, let's make it one of the most important movies to the upcoming phases of Marvel. So it's a very important movie, so you kind of have to watch it. Plus, you get to meet Thor's brother, or not Thor, Thanos' brother, which was kind of interesting there at the end, played by the beautiful Harry Styles. What about you, Kim? Tell me about some of the shows, some of the movies that you liked, and maybe like a surprise in there. Like, oh, I didn't realize that was besides Walking Dead. You already talked about.
I'm actually like peeping this list of 50 of the best comic book movies. And I'm like, oh, I've pretty much seen none of them. But Scott Pilgrim, definitely one of my actual like favorite movies ever. And like I mentioned earlier, it looks like a comic book, but I guess I just never realized it was a comic book. So that's cool. I've seen like a lot of the stuff that came out in like 2006, 4, like when it was just starting with comic book movies. Like I saw the original Iron Man, and those, like the originals, the OGs of these movies were really good. Like I liked the Dark Knight.
What's up, Christy?
Yes. What
I thought of one I didn't like. I did not like Logan.
Really? Wow.
No, and I know I am the minority in that, but that was a depressing. Like for me at that time, comic book movies were an escape and it was fun. Even if it was dark, it was still a fun thing to do. Logan was so depressing. I didn't enjoy a single minute of it. It was, nope, I did not enjoy Logan. There you go. I thought.
All right. That's so funny because that's one of my favorite ones. And so the reason I asked, if there's a property that you don't like, and, my biggest thing is like I never liked Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Like I was a huge Wolverine and X-Men fan, and that was my comic book. Them and Spider-Man were my comic books, and so I loved Wolverine, and I thought Hugh Jackman was a horrible Wolverine, except for Logan. I was gonna say except for fucking Logan. I love Logan. Logan's such a good movie.
I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine and all the other X-Men movies.
No, I didn't like any of the X-Men movies. Like Professor X, he was great. Fucking Patrick Stewart is great in anything, and he was born to be Professor X. Everybody else was terribly miscast and not good. However, I don't know if you guys have watched the Doctor Strange trailer, but with Patrick Stewart, his voice is in the trailer, so I think they're bringing him into the MCU, which is fucking exciting. I would love to see what the MCU does with X-Men. Like, I am very excited to see what the MCU can do with the X-Men. Like, I did not like what Fox did. It was terrible. Some of the movies that I love, Scott Pilgrim has got to be top 2 or 3 of my favorite comic book movies. I would say my favorite comic movie of all time is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales. If you guys haven't seen that fucking movie, it is unbelievable. It's an animated version.
I have a 5-year-old.
I like animated versions.
Oh, dude, it's the best Spider-Man movie. It's one of the best comic book movies of all time. I loved Endgame. I have watched that movie a million times. God, I like the kind of animated ones too. The Incredibles. Nobody mentioned The Incredibles.
I love The Incredibles.
That's a superhero movie. It's not really a comic book movie. I'll strike that from my list. But I like the animated movies. Like some of the animated movies are some of the best ones. Like Mask of the Phantasm was really good. Killing Joke, very good for Batman. Like I like Batman. So I definitely recommend. So Into the Spider-Verse. If you've not seen Into the Spider-Verse, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. And the second one and the third one comes out here pretty soon. So I'm very excited for that. Shows like I thought WandaVision was brilliant. I think if you guys haven't seen WandaVision either, I mean that was a really, really great show. I think it was the best of the Disney
I've
Plus
seen
shows.
it. We talked about it.
I know you saw it. Kim hasn't seen it. And of like our 3 or 4 people who are watching, like my parents make up like 50% of our audience, and I know they haven't watched it.
Batman Beyond was amazing. That was like
Batman
a cartoon
Beyond was
when I was
sick.
a kid.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I think they're eventually moving into a Batman Beyond, and what I love that DC's doing. So I think DC's definitely playing from behind because they try to be Marvel, and we've talked about this on the show. And James is very pro DC, and I'm very pro Marvel. Marvel set what it is to be with the cinematic universe. And then DC's like, hey, we have a bunch of characters. Let's do that too. And then they tried and then they failed miserably. So they're like, let's stop being Marvel. Let's just do our own thing. So let's put out Shazam. Let's put out the Batman. Like, let's start putting out these fucking things that have really nothing to do with a universe. And let's just have great movies. I mean, like, when they stop trying to be Marvel, they have the best movies. And Wonder Woman, great. Doesn't have to be part of the universe. It can just be a great movie. And so I think that's what DC needs to concentrate on is stop doing. The Joker. Have you guys haven't seen the Joker with Joaquin Phoenix? That's a comic book movie, and it's a fucking brilliant movie. It's a Martin Scorsese movie, but he just happens to be the Joker at the end. So they need to be doing more shit like that and trying less to be like Marvel. So that's my 2 cents there.
Doom Patrol and Peacemaker were pretty good. I watched those.
I've heard great things about both those. I heard great things about Peacemaker. If you guys have not seen the intro, like the opening musical number of the Peacemaker, just go into YouTube and watch it. Just seeing John Cena dance and stuff, it's really funny. It's really, really funny. So I highly recommend going and see that. Is there any properties that you're looking forward to coming out, Christy?
No.
There's nothing that you're like really looking forward to? No TV shows, no movies?
There's some talk of some of the series of books I've read getting turned into a series, but it's still so far away from actually happening. I'm not gonna even start getting my hopes up on that kind of stuff yet. I don't anticipate most of the books I read these days to ever end up being any kind of TV or movie. So I'm kind of not in that time frame with anything I'm living now. Cam and I read it's a comic book graphic novel, Bad Guys, and that's going to be an animated one that's coming out. He's pretty excited about that. The books are phenomenal. The movie looks okay. So I guess I could say that one. That'll be a Cam and mommy date.
Sure. That'd be fun. Oh. Kim, is there anything that you've seen coming up there? You're like, I should probably go check that out. Any shows?
So I got like a weird ad on my phone for some weird movie some horror movie called The X, and it's like
X,
yeah. And
it's
so I don't know.
Like
for some reason that looks interesting. I don't know why, even though I don't even like horror films, but I want to see it.
There's a movie called I called it The Dark House last time, and it wasn't The Dark House. And I'm like, hey, everybody should go watch this movie called The Dark House. Mom, I told you to see that movie, so can you please comment what that movie actually was, because it wasn't The Dark House. But there's this fucking great horror like ghost story on there, and like I'm like, you guys should go check out this movie. And then like I got the title wrong the whole fucking time. Now I can't get the right title in my head. So Mommy, I know you're listening. She loves Scott Pilgrim, so
Kick
she
Ass
says that I am so like Kim. My mom loves all the old originals just like you, Kim. My mom just loves Spider-Man, so a lot of love for Spider-Man. The last Spider-Man movie was great. I fucking love that movie. With the
she said your mom said she's too old for any new Spider-Man.
Is she? Any new Spider? I didn't read the whole thing. I just thought any new Spider-Man. LOL. I'm too old.
I don't know how you can be too old for Spider-Man. That seems ridiculous.
Yeah, no. So
my mom feels your pain that you can't think of the name. I'm sorry. And your mom is not responding. So
of course. I need you, Mom. Come on. Need that shit. So that's pretty much all I have. I'm really looking forward to the Doctor Strange movie. It's directed by Sam Raimi. I'm a huge fan of Army of Darkness.
Nice.
So and he did the original Spider-Man movies. So it's gonna be good. It looks fucking cool. They're bringing in the multiverse, which I happen to love the multiverse. They have like, oh come on, mom, Google that shit. I'm excited for it. It's supposed to be a horror movie. It's bringing in Patrick Stewart. There's rumors that Deadpool's going to be in it. There's rumors that they're bringing the John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. That Tom Cruise is going to be Iron Man. So like, there's so many rumors going around this movie. I'm really excited to see it. That might be the one where it's like I have so much expectation going into it, and then it's like, oh, it fucking sucks. I would be so disheartened if that happened. So. I'm very much looking forward to that. And that Moon Knight show looks pretty sick on Disney Plus. Like I have watched all the Disney Plus shows. WandaVision still being my favorite, but that Moon Knight looks pretty cool with Oscar Isaac. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Moon Knight does look very appealing.
Yeah, and he's violent as fuck. So because of that, they Disney Plus just brought in all those Netflix series like Daredevil and Luke Cage, Jessica Jones. They brought them into like a special like adults only kind of Disney part of Disney Plus. Nice. And that's kind of important because Moon Knight is every bit as violent and bloody as any of like the Daredevil, who also had a great cameo in Spider-Man, oddly enough. I think and Marvel does such a great job of just like weaving this fucking story where it's just like a comic book. You read a comic book and you have the Daredevil coming in and hanging out with Peter Parker, and then he goes and there's fucking Luke Cage passing by on the street. I mean, like that is comic books, and the Marvel does a better job than anybody else of bringing that in. And my brain's working a million miles a minute. If you have not seen the I just lost it again. The Watchmen. If you have not seen the Watchmen show on HBO Max, that is by far one of the top 5 TV shows I've ever seen in my entire life.
Interesting.
It's fucking brilliant, and it has nothing. It's not the movie. It's not a recreation of the movie or the comic book. It's a continuation of the movie and the comic book. So the way they did it was brilliant. So there's a lot of great content out there for comic books. I don't ever see the phase going away. I think we are permanently sealed in comic book territory, and knuckleheads like me who are trying to put out cool stories into the world. It's kind of hard for us to swim upstream when we have so much comic book stuff coming out and remakes and shit, reboots. So like I said, people like me who want to, kind of break in, it's hard to get past the noise of all these things, but hopefully, someone like us can. So, Christy, what do you have to plug? It's our plug time here. Are there anything else you want to
add? Bobby and I will have another podcast soon, but I did not set the date yet. I'm sorry.
We don't have to set the date yet. But plug your old show. You don't have to like say when your new show's out. Just plug your old show.
Oh yeah. So the Potter Girls podcast is back with new episodes. We're still undecided if it's going to be bi-weekly or monthly. And again, that's all me dragging my feet on anything. So I'll get back to you on that. But yeah, you can hit up Facebook. You can email us. We're on Spotify too, right, Dave?
We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Premium. We're on all of things.
Your mom says I'm sick. Let me be.
Oh, it's called The Night House. So I was pretty close. The Night House. Very good horror
Dark
movie.
House,
Very,
Night House.
very good horror movie.
That's close.
Night House. Night, it's dark, it's night, and like the whole movie takes place at night, so it's dark and it's night. What about the beat? Kim, what do you have to sell?
I don't have anything to sell, but I mean, we should definitely have mentioned Blunt Man and Chronic.
We should. Fuck yeah, dude.
We're talking about comic books, and we spoke Halloween, and Kevin Smith is great, and Blunt Man and Chronic. I kind of like just forgot about that. Silly me. So
that's funny. Well, Kevin Smith, his career has really coincided with the rise of comic books. He was champion comic books when it was uncool to do so. He gave Stan Lee his first cameo in a movie. I mean, so much so that Stan Lee was in a million fucking movies, and his last movie was Miss Marvel, and he was reading a Mallrats script where it was his very first cameo. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, so I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan, which kind of leads into what I'm selling. So, Race to Race to Space, Event Horizon, Book 3. I'm very excited to announce that it came out on Friday. I've already gotten some awesome reviews for it. I'm waiting on a review from a sci-fi magazine who's given me some pretty good love over the last few books. Super excited. It's the last book in the series.
Nice.
I've taken this series from a couple little kids that are trying to navigate growing up and trying to find their dad to now they're all grown up and now they're living in a world that they helped create. And it's a fantastic story. And a lot of it was inspired by Kevin Smith. And I've talked about this before, and I don't mind telling the story again. I was kind of at a crossroads. Like I'm sick of the job I'm fucking doing. I'm still in the mode of I'm doing the same job I was doing when I was 16 years old. The only thing that's changed is I'm making a little bit more money. I'm a little bit older, but the job is essentially the same. And I get no fulfillment out of work. And I will be very honest about saying that. What I get fulfillment out of is writing. And I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. I was listening to a lot of Kevin Smith podcasts, and he has a story where he's just like, nobody's going to tell your story except for you. You are the only person that can tell the stories that are in your head. There's nobody else is going to tell these stories. And so he really inspired me. Like I had always written, but I've never written stuff of length. It's always been like, stories that are like 5 pages long or poems or whatever. But because of him, like I started writing like blog posts, and that turned into scripts, and that turned into books. I had a script for Race to Space. I took it to California. I met Kevin Smith. He's fucking a really, really nice guy. And he's like, if the script is going nowhere, try writing it as a book or try turning it into a book. And that fucking lit this light bulb above my head. So as soon as I got off the plane, I turned Race to Space into a book. I sent it to a publisher. The first publisher I sent it to bought the book and gave me a 3-book deal. And I'm on the 6th book of that. So I have to give Kevin Smith like a huge shout out, because he did inspire me. And he gave me the great idea of like turning these fucking scripts into a book. And I threw some love for him afterwards. I tweeted at him. He liked my tweet, which is for me kind of cool that Kevin Smith liked my tweet. But like I used this book to give love to so many people, because I wouldn't have done it without the support of so many people. So pepper throughout the book. Christy and Mike, you are no exception. I gave you guys some love in this book as well. The book is Neil, who's the main character, is based off of my kid. And there's just so much love to all the people who've supported me through the writing of the book. So I give you guys a lot of love throughout the book, and some little shout outs and some Easter eggs and stuff. So highly recommend. You can go to my Facebook page, either David Hawk on Facebook, or just follow my personal page. You have all the links there. If you guys can like and share and review, I would love that. I'd appreciate it. The book definitely deserves to see the light of day. It's an amazing book. And this season of Mile High Podcast, we're going to see James coming back. He was supposed to be on tonight, but he got called away. He has a new job. So we're excited to see. Yes, that's what my book looks like. Also looks like this too.
So pretty.
It's a great book. I love that cover too. My publisher did a great job on that cover. So Mile High Podcast, we have some really good shit coming out. We have some more Ask the Expert episodes. Go back and check the Cooking with Cannabis with Kim and David. That was a fantastic episode. We have alternative weed episodes. So like we're going to be sampling like kratom and kava and that shit to see if it has any kind of effects like weed does. We're going to be talking, we're going to have some more all-female episodes. We're going to be talking women of weed again. I mean, we have a lot of great shit coming out. And with James coming back, we're just going to get better, and we're getting right back into it. We're getting right back into the groove. So definitely check us out at facebook.com. Go on Twitter at Mile High Podcast. You can go on to Venmo at High Podcast 303 or at Truckee Pacific 303. I should probably get that one. Of all the ones to get right, the one where you send us the money, that's the one I should probably get right. So Truckee Pacific 303 on Venmo. Definitely check us out. Thank you guys all so much for commenting, for watching. Kim and Christy, thank you guys so much for being on. Hope you have a good night, and take care, all.
Night.
Oh, and as Mike Santori likes to say, be good to each other. So be good.